Vision. Following clues left by our ancestors, we unbury the past to reveal a knowledge of unfathomable value, putting us just a little closer to our own true birthrights. From the secret history of a possible bloodline of Jesus Christ, the secret history of America's founders, to the secret history of extraterrestrial interaction on our planet, here to bring light to the night. Your host for Night Vision Radio, Renee Barnett.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to Night Vision. How is everybody? I got to say, a lot of people that I've been talking to, I know we've been through a lot. Obviously, the COVID thing has been horrendous and lots of other craziness. But it seems like, I've been feeling kind of, like the blahs or maybe a little depressed or something like that. Most of you guys know I just got back from France where I spent 6 weeks. And one of the reasons I wanted to go was because I had been isolating, of course, when we were supposed to. But I found that, it's like I kind of got stuck. And I got stuck in my isolation and I didn't mind it anymore. And it's just like now it's such a big chore just to go anywhere, and I'm not sure if that's because of the COVID thing. Of course, a lot of you guys know I lost, one of my very dearest friends, Gloria, on Easter, suddenly and unexpectedly. A lot of you guys knew Gloria Amendola. She was a great teacher and author and, just a pal that I lost. But, it's like every single person, it seems like that I've been speaking with, or most people, not every single one, has been feeling kind of, ugh, so I thought, gosh, let's do something really fun and interesting for this show tonight. Take a step away from some of the hard history that we've been doing with our dearly beloved Night Vision historian, James Martin, who will be back in a couple of weeks with some new surprises. He's on holiday right now, so I am very, very jealous. And then, of course, last week we had our spy, Ian Withers, talking about, scandals and murder and everything else. So I thought, it would be a great idea to just really indulge ourselves tonight in something really interesting, fun, but also factual. And we're, as is our mandate on this show, we will get into some history. So I thought we'd have a great conversation tonight about our wonderful moon up in the sky, which is, always been so magnetic, enigmatic and magnetic to me. It's like I can remember many times just going out back and looking up and, staring at the moon. And, it's different than the sun, obviously, because we can't go out and stare at the sun. But the moon we can look directly at. It's there. It's beautiful. And it's so mysterious. I mean, my goodness, it controls the ocean waves. And there's so many mysteries and legends behind the moon. So I thought, we'll get the moon expert on with us tonight. And so I'd like to welcome my guest tonight, author and researcher, Constance Victoria Briggs.
Hi, how are you today? Good, thank you.
To have you on. I know you've been on with some of my colleagues here on KGRA and on, of course, lots of other shows. And you're pretty prolific author, actually. I know you've got 4 books out. And as we were chatting earlier today, you got another one in the chute. So,
yeah.
But the main one, you've written books about God, about, the sort of hidden world, and all kinds of things like that. But tonight we're going to focus on your latest book, The Encyclopedia of Moon Mysteries. And I got to tell you, I love books like this because you've done so much work, compiling. It is an encyclopedia. It's not a narrative. And so what it is it's an incredible reference book. If you're looking into anything about the moon, if you're just interested in the moon, or if you're doing any kind of research that involves that in any way, whether it's symbolism, history, astronauts, whatever, if it's moon related, you'll find it. And I got to ask you, how did you compile all that?
Right. Well, I started off studying about the possibility of there being life in outer space, like, other beings in our universe, trying to answer the question, are we alone in the universe? In addition to my research with angels and in the unseen world and God. So these were my hot topics. The moon came to my attention via a little book that I got my hands on, titled "Our Mysterious Spaceship Moon." And although I've always been a believer, of course, that we're not alone in the universe, and I'm an advocate for it now, I didn't realize how many strange stories there are about anomalies on our moon. I didn't realize that there are all kind of oddities up there until I put my hands on this little book. Now, with my understanding, of course, that I know some people don't believe that that we had astronauts go into to the moon, but I believe it. It was my understanding, in my own mind, that they could have encountered something out there, but I didn't spend a lot of time dwelling on it. But having my hands on this research and on that little book that I mentioned, I learned a lot. And as I started studying that book, and I went off and I did my own research trying to see what else I was missing in regard to the moon, I started compiling these stories and throwing them into a file, which is what I do as a researcher. I keep the interesting stuff, in case I want to use it someday. Excuse me. What I realized is that I had been missing out on a lot of information. I didn't know. And we have these, we'll get into it, these anomalies on the moon. And so my trying to figure out what else is out there, I learned there were people in the 60s and the 70s that were talking about this a lot. And I thought, okay, well, people know I'm a little bit late. I'll put it together for those who might need some information on it. I'll just put it together in an encyclopedia format. My encyclopedia format is designed for people who want more knowledge on all the encyclopedias that I've written for, so that they can go in, do their research, pick a topic such as, astronauts or rocks on the moon or UFOs, whatever. They could go on my book and look up some topic and then jumpstart their own research. What I didn't realize, and this is what's so important, is that there are so many people out of the loop. So people have wanted to talk about this book, even though I thought, well, some of the information's been around for years. There were people who weren't even born when we went to the moon,
Sure.
And so this has been eye-opening for me to know that there are still people around that are interested from watching the missions go up, and people who are just new to the information.
Yeah. So was it triggered by some of your other research that had connections with this moon research, or what drew you to the moon, I guess?
Well, I had been in investigating personally, angelic beings in my life and spirit guides in my life, and the spiritual journey of mine has been like stepping stones, so that when I got to the point over this 30-year process of research, that there are extraterrestrial, beings out there. Those studies, pretty much led me to the moon. I felt like my guide was actually with me in coming up with the topics I've written about. And I just felt that this one was so important because there is a possibility that we have some ancient origin connecting to the moon, that the moon is not, and, we'll get into it, it's not just, a dead rock in the sky,
Right.
but it has something to do with our progression as a species.
That's intriguing.
That's something that I think is mind-blowing, and something that should be discussed.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. Well, I'm with you. I do believe that, we did land on the moon. I also am open to the possibility that there were other things that were discovered that weren't shared necessarily. Because I tell you, one of the most interesting things in your book was at the very end, where you've logged all those astronauts, all those transmissions from the astronauts talking about things that they were seeing in real time. Mm-hmm. And, you hear them here and there. And I think this is what's so good about your book, is that you see them here and there, but to have them all compiled in one place, then it's much more compelling. If one person says it, that's interesting. But if all these other people at different times on unconnected missions and things like that are also saying these things, okay, that I'm going to listen to for sure, because that has the ring of truth to it. Right. I've talked about this a lot. There have been a lot of astronauts, it seems like, that once they retire or at least stop doing that kind of work, I've noticed they kind of, a lot of them get, kind of spiritual. You'll see them sort of growing their hair out long and much more philosophical and spiritual. And then, of course, some of them have actually come out and talked about things that they've seen and actually joined in with the communities that are investigating, the UFO community and others that are investigating these types of things. So I found that pretty mind-blowing to see it all there in one location.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. It's wonderful.
So I'm a little perturbed with NASA because, I think that they could have told us these things. I think that they could have been more forthcoming with this information. I don't feel like people should have had to dig around in books, people trying to do the research to get this very important information. In the 1960s, NASA put together a compilation of anomalies on the moon. These anomalies have been called they're now called transient lunar phenomena. And this phenomena talks about they put together a catalog containing them. And it gives the dates, it gives the astronomers' names, and it gives the description of each anomaly going back decades that they were recording. And once they started, trying to get men to the moon, they had a lot of concerns that they were not, telling us publicly about what the heck was going up there. What were these lights? Let me give you some examples. They were seeing the lights of different shapes, different sizes, different colors, moving across the moon, and the craters in the moon. above the moon. In lunar eclipses, they could see lights during the eclipse. They saw shadows moving across the moon, objects that they don't know what they were, clouds, vapor, and sometimes they were there 15 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, some moving, some bright, some faint, all kinds of strange sightings, and they call it lunar transient phenomena. This is something that most people do not know about, that there are things and lights moving around on the moon. And I think we could have been told that, don't you? I would like to have known that what's, above my head is not just a beautiful but dead rock in the sky like I've been told, or
Yeah.
like we've been taught. There's something going on up there. What's going on? What's causing the commotion? So I covered some of that in this book, and I named a lot of the craters and what was seen in the craters, and I named some of the lunar locations where the astronauts sat down, and some things they saw there. But I think that's pretty important information, in my opinion. I don't. I
Have you ever got a chance to talk to any of the astronauts?
No, I wish. I wish I had. I did. I sent letters to a couple of people with no responses, and most of them are gone now.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that they're used to getting, inquiries, and they don't feel like answering.
Yeah. Yeah.
Frankly speaking. But they did leave enough information behind. If you go onto the NASA website, there's a lot of documentation. I actually had someone in an audience find that statement quite funny. I have said that before. You can go to the NASA website, look things up. I didn't make it all up. It's there, And they
Yeah.
said, oh, listen to her. Documentation, ha, ha, ha. Yes, it's there. The transcripts are there. The transcripts are in my book where the astronauts are talking. It's there. Now, you do have to go through a lot of information, but you can find it. You can find some of the old photos with UFOs on it there as well. A lot of things are no longer available, if ever. But there are some things you can still see there if you know what to look for and where to look. So no, I didn't get to speak with any of them, and honestly, I don't know that they are allowed to recount publicly, some of the things they may have
No,
seen.
I don't either, but I did. I don't remember, honestly, and I know this sounds crazy, but I'm old and I've talked to a lot of people. I don't remember if I spoke with Edgar Mitchell personally, but of course I did see him and hear him on different radio shows and see him at like UFO conferences and things like that. And then I spoke with Buzz Aldrin over the telephone, and it was a brief conversation, so it wasn't a lot. But the one that was the most interesting was Gordon Cooper, and I used to be for several years the managing editor of UFO magazine. And so we interviewed Gordon Cooper. Actually, it was Vicki Ecker, who was our editor-in-chief, who actually did the interview. And, but I heard it. And then, of course, I probably ended up being the one to transcribe it. And he did talk about seeing a lot of things, not only on missions, but like, when we were on the ground, like in Germany and different things like that. And he also said he saw technology being used where, they could, sort of teleport things. And so
wow, he did it that.
He went pretty far. He was already, pretty elderly then, and he, was kind of ill in a way. And he probably thought, if I'm going to tell it, I'll tell it now. But yeah, every now and then you'll get these little nuggets from people, and I would love to know whether or how they feel about, what they have witnessed. Did it make a big change in who they were? Uh, did it make any change at all in their lives? How did they deal with it, and what did they think about it?
So, I actually, excuse me, I was working on a piece today, actually, on Neil Armstrong.
Oh,
Uh, yeah, I've got something a little bit coming up about the missions in my new book, and he, people think that he was very reclusive and shy after the Apollo 11 mission. Being the first man to walk on the moon, you would think that he would have done a lot of PR, a lot of encouragement to young people to, go forward and see what's out there and all of that. But, and kind of promote NASA and the future missions, but he didn't. He became very reclusive and quiet. And one of the people who interviewed him said it was because he saw something up there and he was asked to cover it up, and that he didn't want to, he saw something, and when they were there, and he was told to turn the limb of the camera so that it couldn't be seen on television. And he didn't like it, of course, because then it made him appear to be, someone who was withholding the truth or maybe lying or whatever. And so he kind of, became a recluse for that reason. But another theory is the reason he became so quiet is because not only did they see something out there, but that was something, that they had to live with for the rest of their lives. That, of course, would have been, a very shocking thing. I saw the press conference of the three astronauts when they came back, and a lot of people have, if you can find it out there, and they looked depressed. They looked upset. They didn't look happy and jolly and excited at that, first press conference.
oh my gosh, what do you think it was?
So, I'll tell you the story. I have the story in my book. You've got some experience, so you may know some of it. But so Apollo 11, on the way to the moon, saw something. Buzz Aldrin talks about it in his first biography. They didn't know what this thing was, so they're on their way. They see this object. I believe it was shaped like the letter L, and it's outside of the ship. And when you're in space, you can't tell if something's far or close or big or small or whatever. I'm not a scientist, but so they were wondering what it was, and they didn't want to. My understanding, they didn't want to call ground control and alarm them and say, yeah, we're seeing something. So they approached it by saying, where is a piece of, the maybe a part of the equipment came off, maybe it's part of the rocket, floating around out there. Can you tell us how close we are to it, to the rocket? Anyway, it was several thousand miles away. It's my understanding. It was nowhere near where they were. So they didn't know what this thing was. So, but they said it followed them. Eventually, one of the astronauts came out and said that they thought it was a piece of their equipment. But later on, they were saying they really didn't know. And for me, I just feel like maybe they were just saying that because they didn't want to alarm people. But so they traveled to the moon, and they, the two astronauts, reach the surface, and they come out of the lunar module, and they see apparently these ships sitting on the edge of a crater. Is the tale. It's a very famous story now, that they saw ships. And so the astronauts were privy to a secret line back to Houston, medical line, that they could, so the audience around the world were watching this, and but they had a secret line that if something went wrong, they could call. It was a medical channel, and so they did. They used this, And they said, we see a ship sitting on the edge of a crater, and they're watching us. And even though it was supposed to be a secure line, other people on their radios, ham radios, or picked it up, and picked up the conversation, and they were saying they were seeing these things. Now, there was a man from NASA who worked at NASA who wrote a book. His name is Maurice Chatelain, and he talks about it. He talks about what they saw, and he says that the story was real. But we don't have any proof. And so when they did that, the story is that the astronauts were also told to turn the camera, whatever, so that the audience didn't get wind of what was really going on up there. So if you can imagine, not only do you go up there and you see something as shocking as there being UFOs and beings, and then you're asked to cover it up, I can imagine that would do some kind of harm emotionally to a person. And maybe that is what happened and why he or and the others were so quiet about what had happened up there. What's interesting also about that story is that this person who wrote the book said it appeared to them too like these beings were waiting for them to see if all went well. They said because they left soon after the astronauts touched down and stepped onto the surface, and they could see that everything was all right, but they left. Now, that's the story I got, that these were apparently benevolent beings. So if there's any worry as to if something or someone is there that's, not so kind or scary, it didn't seem to be the case, because that's the third story I find interesting that I heard, that they showed some kind of kindness, if they really exist, some kind of kindness to the astronauts. There are two other stories where they possibly encountered beings, and I'd like to tell you about those as well.
Oh yeah, I want to know about that. First, did you ever see where anyone of the astronauts or the crew ever described the craft that they saw that was sitting there on the edge of the crater?
No. The only word that I got was menacing. It said that they looked menacing, but that's relative, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been because my gosh, you're not expecting company, here on the moon. So I would love to hear about the beings. Oh my gosh, this is so incredible.
So I didn't hear any real description of that encounter of the beings, except, and there was a story, and now I have to tell you, I believe that story that I just relayed. I'm not sure about this one, but I'll put it out there. And yeah. I did put this all under Moon Mysteries in my books, because I don't, I wasn't there, so it's a mystery as to what happened.
I will say I did appreciate your approach in the book. That you took a very journalistic approach. You're not swearing to these anecdotal accounts. You're just saying, this is what this person says, allegedly this, or, this is what this person claimed. And I love that, because it's like, I think so many people just put stuff out there, and just like it's the gospel when they don't really know for sure. But, it's wonderful to get the ideas out there, but, also with the understanding that these are ideas for us to explore and, speculate on.
Exactly. We need to explore, we need to research, and if we can prove any of it, that would be awesome. But I tell you what, if any one of the stories are true, that means we're not alone in this universe.
No. I don't see how we could be. Even though I was, managing editor of UFO Magazine for 5 years, and then I did a show on UFOs for 5 years, and I've done, I'm television producer by by trade, and I've done a lot of shows on paranormal and UFOs. I've always had a healthy dose of skepticism, and it's not like I really tried. Oh, well, let me look at this, but it's always like I'm always thinking, oh, could this be real? Could this really be real, or am I just, you know? Did I just think I saw that, or did that really happen? I'm one to talk myself out of things, but I do believe that a little bit of skepticism is healthy because then you get to the truth. If you just believe everything out of hand, or if you dismiss everything out of hand, you're never going to find out anything.
I agree. Now, some of us have had our, at least I have had experiences with the paranormal, and, I don't doubt that we're alone in the universe. I don't doubt that there's something else going on. I don't doubt that there's more to this world than we know. That's another show. So, but I do, when I have, for example, a paranormal experience, I, do make sure I'm questioning all the angles before I can call it an experience of, say, my dad visiting me from the other side.
Right.
I'm married to an engineer who
very analytical.
Oh yeah, and he helps me with that, and he'll say, everything's not, the paranormal, honey, that happens. I think this light came on for whatever reason, or this light flashed on and off for whatever reason, but yeah, we've had lots of.
You guys probably have a good balance going.
Yes. But there was, get back to your question, there was a story about one of the astronauts witnessing and being when they opened the lunar module door. There was said to be a being that was ethereal looking. So but I don't know. That I don't have a lot to back that tale. I call it a tale. But with the astronauts, and people saying that that story they felt was true, that they saw ships on the side of a crater. We don't have any, of course, official documentation, but we have those stories. And why would someone come forward and put that in a book? That book didn't make him a lot of money.
Yeah.
So not only that, though, I wanted to tell. So there were a couple of stories where Apollo 10 and Apollo 13 had some issues.
Yeah.
And so I'm very, I'm kind of stuck on the idea of helping people appreciate aliens or extraterrestrials are not here to, always harm us. Now, people don't like to hear that. They like the drama, but there are good beings out there. It's Star Wars. It's light and darkness. But in this case, Apollo 10 was the rehearsal for the Apollo 11 mission. So Apollo 10 got as close to the moon as they possibly could. And as they did so, they ran into a problem. So these two of the astronauts went into the lunar module and headed towards the moon as a kind of a dry run. And they got stuck out there. Something happened technologically on the craft, and they couldn't move. And they're calling Houston. What can we do? They're calling the command module. We need help. We need assistance. We can't move. So they they saw a UFO of some sort outside of their craft and go by. And a few minutes later, after that passed by, everything within the lunar module began to work again. And it is thought that they were, whatever happened, who was ever out there, were able to fix the problem so that they could carry on with their mission and, get back home. So with that said, again, if that were the case, if they were helped some way that we don't understand as they passed by, then again, that would have been a benevolent being, trying to assist. And I like that story. I also
I
heard
mean,
that they were.
they're obviously, more than likely further advanced technologically than we are. So that would make sense that they might, have some tricks up their sleeve on how to fix the craft. But if they're that much more advanced than we are, if they'd wanted to disable the craft or if they'd wanted to do damage, they could have done that,
Right.
rather than, to let them go on their way or help them go on their way. But
Right.
yeah, that's a good story. I hope that's true.
Well, no, and I heard that the astronauts were told not to talk about it, not to say anything about that story. Apollo 13 too. As we all know, they got into trouble, and there's a story that extraterrestrials helped them out of that situation, and of course that's not in the movie. So,
No.
right, and with all of the men who walked on the moon, none of them encountered anything hostile.
Right.
So if there are, and I believe there are, by the way, if there are beings on the moon, they don't seem to be interested in harm. It seems that we're more interested in harming ourselves than beings from outer space
Yeah.
doing a thing. One of my favorite stories I've titled the box structure story. And I have to tell your audience this one. This one comes from the Apollo 17 mission, the last mission. By this time, they had their little, I call it a dune buggy, the little car that they could drive around the moon. And so they were traveling in their little buggy, and they came across something. At that time, the world audience worth watching, and Walter Cronkite was the narrator or the host on the evening news. Apparently, he hosted, I think, maybe all of them. I didn't, know that until I read about Apollo 17. But so he was watching, and he says, and everyone heard him, that looks like a man-made structure, or words to that effect, or a box that looked like a box structure. I've gotten two different quotes there, man-made and box. But this thing that he saw resembled a shoebox, and it was huge. It was a big building, essentially. And so he was cut off for 20 minutes when he said that.
Wow.
Yeah. And then when he came back on, he says, "Oh, they told me, ha ha ha, that the camera on the rover they were traveling on inadvertently took a picture of itself. It accidentally took a picture of itself, and there was nothing on the buggy that was shaped like that, and." People today, there are people who have come out and said, I saw this Apollo 17 broadcast, and there was something on there, and it looked like a huge, building. Some of them said it looked like a big square building. So, there are still people around who witnessed this and remember it. So there you go. There's one of the stories of structures on the moon, and maybe I can get to that too. So.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. In fact, one of my cohorts at UFO Magazine was Don Ecker, who was the research director. And we did I worked with him on his UFO show for 5 years. And then subsequently, he's been on KGRA for quite some time, but I think he's recently actually retired or taken a big hiatus, but I remember going over to his house a few years ago, and he had all these blown up pictures. You guys ought to talk maybe of the moon and all these different, structure looking things and anomalies. It was really, really interesting. So I wonder if those are some of the same ones, that you're going to be sharing with us now, because there definitely were some different looking things up there.
Well, so one of the most famous stories is that of what we call the Blair Cuspids. I don't know if you've heard of those, but these were monuments. Well, they look like cross between pyramid and monuments, and there are several of them together in a cluster. And they were called the Blair Cuspids because William Blair was the person who, kind of talked about them in the news and figured that they were not that they were man-made or unnatural. And so apparently they've seen a lot of things like pyramids, towers. There's a box structure, domes, lighted domes, up there. Things that resemble equipment. There are areas that look like they said that look like there's some mining going on up there. What are they mining for? Except maybe helium-3. They found ancient ruins. It looks like maybe there had been some sort of war there in the past. And things that, there's one called the castle. It looks like it has turrets on it. Very interesting stuff that, all kinds of geometric shaped buildings, bridges up there. There's a very famous case where a bridge appeared. There were these astronomers working, and a bridge appeared out of nowhere. It was about 12 miles across. They had been studying this area of the moon for many years, and then all of a sudden they see this thing. And when this astronomer reported it, he was scoffed at and said, "Oh, you're not seeing anything? No way." And he said, "Yeah, this thing just showed up." And the other astronomers looked, and came in and backed him up. So they've seen bridges, and that bridge disappeared eventually. Just really, strange things. But today, I mean, that was about 3 decades ago. But today, there are people who are looking at Google Moon or Google Earth, and I am not a Google Moon, Google Earth person, so I don't, I'm no expert in that. But I've been listening to other people who have been studying this, and they swear that they're seeing things on the moon that weren't reported in the past, even because we have clear imagery now, and
I know that you could do Google Moon or the same thing that you could do with Google Earth. I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, I'm almost sorry that I brought it up because I'm not an expert, but that's what I've been hearing.
Really interesting.
Yeah. So I'm working on that myself, trying to get in there and see exactly what they're talking about, because they're swearing that they see cities on the moon. Now I have seen I've seen videos of UFO, what looks like ships coming and going on the moon, and coming out of crevices there. And we didn't have that, back in the 60s. We weren't able to do that in the 70s, but we have a lot clearer views now. I have a Moon Mysteries page on Facebook where I come across the stuff and I put it up, and really it's for people to make up their own minds, come to their own conclusions, but at least know that it's out there, so that we're not in the dark about this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so interesting. Throughout time there have been so many, so much symbolism involved with the moon. And, on the one hand, the moon, they say the moon's the feminine and the sun is the masculine, but, and we have moon goddesses, but by the same token, we have the man in the moon, and we have Apollo, the moon god, so I don't know if it's masculine or feminine. It's always struck me as being kind of feminine, maybe because it's dark and mysterious, and women seem to be more into like the intuitive and that sort of thing. But I was reading about a reference in your book about people called the Selenites that were. Can you tell us a little bit about that? They were two people that have been inhabitors of the moon.
Yeah. So, I'm going to try to keep my train of thought, because there is something else I want to talk about too. Remind me to talk about the origin of the moon, and that'll connect it. But the Selenites. So this is the name of the beings that are supposedly living on the moon, and this name came about, centuries ago when we first created the telescope. The idea of the moon being inhabited was just what they considered, a sure thing and scientific knowledge. And it wasn't even, a huge big deal to believe that all the planets were inhabited, let alone the moon. And so the first astronomers studying it, they saw the mountains and the valleys on the moon, and they swore that they were seeing some kind of vegetation and movement. And so they named the Selenites after the goddess of the moon, Selene. I say Selene, sorry, Selene, and that's where the name came about. But the idea that there were people up there, just like on Earth, was just normal to them. So that's where the name came from. That they believe they existed.
There's as you probably know, there's a stone, called selenite.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love it. It's one of my favorites. In fact, I got a couple pieces right here. Here's a piece, and then here's my selenite tower.
Oh, I have one. I should bring mine out, but it looks just like that. I don't want to read.
Oh yeah, well, it's weird because it's I really did not know about Selene and I didn't know about that. I'm assuming that's why this is called selenite, is because it's white. But strangely, although I didn't know about the Selene connection, this selenite has always reminded me of the moon.
Oh, yeah.
It's so shimmery, and it's really interesting stuff.
I love it. I love it too. Yeah, hold on. Ta-da!
Oh, you sure do. Oh my gosh, that's gorgeous.
Oh, yeah. But let me just read to you a little bit, since you don't know about her much. So in my book, I write Selene, Greek goddess of the moon. Selene drove her chariot across the sky each night. She was often depicted as sitting on a crescent moon, or with the crescent moon placed over her head, or wearing it as a decorative ornament atop her head. She was believed to be the moon incarnate. Many words are derived from the name Selene, including Selenites, the lunar inhabitants, selenocentric, when speaking of the center of the moon, selenology, which is studies involving moon astronomy, senotropic, to turn towards the moon, selenotropism in botany, to turn upwards in response to moonlight, and there's also selenite crystal, believed to contain healing properties.
Wow.
And I did something I've never done on a show before. I actually stood up and grabbed something. Excuse me.
I've done that. I've done that before as well. I just couldn't resist. Something I just had to show. Oh, and of course, you notice? Or wait a minute. I can't figure out which way I am. I'm looking at
right.
My little moon up here.
I saw that. Mine is not handy, but I have one too, and it lights up.
It's not even mine. I bought it for one of the kids when I was in England year before last. I guess it wasn't last year. I didn't go anywhere last year, but I found it and I thought, oh, how sweet that is. And so I remembered it today. I said, oh, I'm going to go get the little moon ball and bring it in and put it up behind me for the show tonight. But yeah, that's really interesting. There's the Selene, the moon goddess. Is she represented? I mean, is it just the moon, or is there a constellation that's associated with her?
I just know her being representing the moon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
and so I'm guessing the moon is not made of green cheese.
No, I would hope that it's a lot more substantive than that.
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder if there is speculation. I'm sure there's probably speculation, but I wonder if there's any information that there might be, like underground activity going on the moon. And maybe that's why we don't see so much on the outside. Maybe a lot of it is underneath.
So I wanted to talk about something, and I can tie it in if you don't mind me taking.
Where you want to go?
No. I mean, if you don't mind me
this is also interesting to me. I'm just all over the place, but please do what you want to do.
No. I'm going to answer your question in the longest way because I wanted to talk about this, and it ties into the question. All right. So I believe there are things going on under the moon, and here's my take on it. Excuse me. So if we look at the origin of the moon, we do not. Are you hearing me?
Oh, me? Yeah.
Oh, okay. Shall I continue? I thought you were taking a break or going to take a break or something. Oh, okay.
No, not yet. In about 5 minutes.
Oh, okay. So the origin of the moon is up for question. We do not know how the moon was created. And it's going to take me longer than 5 minutes to tell this story. So we'll have to, but we don't know how.
We'll make a cliffhanger out of it.
Right. We don't know how the moon was created. There have been 5 theories that have come and gone. They have been all discounted. They don't know how the moon got there with all of the time and money and effort of sending men up there to figure it out. We don't know. But interestingly enough, there is a story, a story and a theory that are connected as to how the moon came to be. I'm not saying that is true, but it's my favorite theory, and that ties in with that spaceship moon theory. So after the astronauts returned with the materials that they studied, the moon rocks and the dust from the moon and all of this, they found some discrepancies in the age of the rocks and all of this. So anyway, 2 Soviet scientists came forward after looking at the data of the moon with their theory, and they're saying that they think the moon is not a natural satellite, that it is artificially created. All right. And they said that it looked, well, before I get into that, here are some of their reasons. The elements that they found in the moon rocks and the moon dust and all of this are elements that we don't very see much readily here on Earth, and the ones that we did, they're very, very hard metals. And they were saying that it looks like if you were going to build some kind of craft to be in outer space, it looks like that's what it did, because that's what the moon is made up of these strange elements and metals. And they said, when you look at the craters on the moon, no matter how hard a meteorite hit the thing, the craters are all around 2.5 miles deep, and that's, or kind of shallow, and that it doesn't matter how big or small it is, they're all pretty much even. And that should not, be the case. And then, of course, they looked at the very shocking possibility that the moon is hollow. So when the astronauts went up a few times, they crashed, the ascent stage, which was part of the lunar module, into the moon. The moon, everyone will remember this phrase, rang like a bell. Okay, I was talking about the two Soviet scientists who,
Yes.
I said that it was made of, I said it was made of hard metals, that the craters were shallow, and it was hollow. So they came to the conclusion that what the moon really is they called it a spaceship. But they believed that this thing was created out in their paper, that it was created by advanced beings outside of our solar system and brought across the universe and placed here. Now, as strange as that may sound, history of the moon, some have said that that makes the sense, because the moon is too big, to be a moon. It's too big to be way out there. In fact, one of my favorite quotes, and I use this a lot, so because I feel like it kind of drives the point home. Author Isaac Asimov, who was a professor of biochemistry, places is our moon doing way out there? It's too far out to be a true satellite of Earth. It's too far out uh, to be a true satellite of Earth. It's too big to have been captured by the Earth. The chances of such a capture haven't been effected, and the moon then having taken up a nearly circular orbit about the Earth are too small to make such an eventuality credible. But then, if the moon is neither a true satellite of the Earth nor a captured one, what is it? So these two Soviet scientists are in good company when they're saying that this thing can't be natural. So they concluded that it was made because of looking at the elements and the fact that it's hollow. So they predicted that there is someone inside of the moon driving it, that it was brought across the universe, and they said they think that what's inside of it are engines and survival supplies to be able to live in this thing. Now, interestingly enough, there are two other things going on. First of all, we have the Zulu people of Africa who said that the way the moon was created was that it was a egg. They likened it to an egg, and that this thing was hollowed out. The yolk was taken out of this egg or planetoid, and it was brought across the universe and placed here. That's what a Zulu legend says, going back thousands of years. Now, we know that there are some ancient people who have claimed to have had contact with extraterrestrials that gave them information that that we couldn't have known. So speaking of, and along with that, there is a archway in Bolivia, an ancient archway, a sun gate, the Sun Gate of Bolivia. And it is an archway where symbols had been carved into this thing that tell the story of the moon. And it says that the moon came in. So you've got the Zulu people saying it. You've got, ancient writings saying it elsewhere. You've got scientists looking at this stuff and going, yeah, I don't think it's natural. And then there are the stories of there being a time on Earth where there was no moon. Have you heard that before?
I have not.
Yes. There are writings from prominent men of old, philosophers, such as Aristotle, for example, who talked about a time where there was no moon in the sky. And that is something that shocks people when I say it, but it's out there. It's, you can go and you can research a time without a moon and all the people that talked about it. And so if the ancient writings are true, they tie in to what the Soviet scientists were saying, what the Zulu people were saying, what the Greek philosophers were saying about there being a time when there was no moon, and that this thing came in and was brought in to Earth's orbit.
Wow. Well, in a way, back then, they're sort of referring to it like as a ship. But it almost seems like, if it's true that there are inhabitants there and it's basically been, hanging in the same place, in our orbit for a long, long time, it would almost seem like it's like a space station, or maybe even a city, a small city in there. You know what I mean? It rather than being a spaceship, I mean, maybe it does have the capability to propel itself somehow, or have, be able to be propelled. But it would almost seem like, there would be much more going on, and like they've sort of parked themselves there to, do their work, maybe be observers.
I'm listening. I'm trying to find a quote for you that that they had given. Now, so I'm not going to use the quote, but I'll just tell you what I think. I agree with you, and I think that what the Soviet scientists were saying wasn't just that it was a ship like the command module that was carrying 3 astronauts. They were trying to say that it is a place where there are inhabitants who
Yeah.
came across, and that this thing was equipped for a long journey through space with all the supplies you would need for survival. And so that's it. They used the term Noah's Ark, a kind of a Noah's Ark is what they said to come. So when we think in terms of what they said, then we need to start asking ourselves, then, if that story is true, and there were people inside of there. Number one, are they still there? Number two, when they parked themselves, did they leave and come here, some of them, and some of them stayed?
Right.
Do they have a connection to our origins somehow? People think that we are being watched from the moon. Well, could these be the same beings that came across the universe and parked themselves there that are watching us? Do they have some sort of agenda for us? It certainly seems, since all of the Apollo astronauts, by the way, Apollo missions were followed, they all saw UFOs on the way to the moon or strange lights. So it looks like, and by the way, those are not just tales. Those are, there are reports of strange lights being, at the launch pad in one case. And even the Russians saw it and commented on them. Well, what are those? Those are UFOs. Around there, what are they doing? They were followed. So could it still be the same people, the same beings that could be on the moon? Were they following these missions? Were they watching? Did they know we were coming? Have they been watching us all along? Did they come in with the moon if the moon was brought in?
Yeah. Did they come in, from somewhere else? Did they, from a place that they had to maybe escape or to get away from, or, maybe they're just scouting. But, you hear stories. It reminds me very much of, I don't know if you're familiar with, the remote viewers for the U.S. military. And Joe McMoneagle was one. And he did there was a book later that he did called Mind Trek, where he did this project. He was working at the Monroe Institute after he left the military. And he was tasked with this project to view. And if you're familiar with how they do it, according to military protocols, it's like they just give them a project number, like this is number F248, view the target. And so that's all they know. They know nothing. And he had this project, did not have any idea who the client was. He was just given it to him by his monitor there at Monroe Institute. Anyway, he came up with all these descriptions of these beings and in a very hot place and these pyramids. And he said they're waiting for someone. They're waiting for, like a search party or someone, to come back. And, this is what he got. As it turned out, after he was all said and done, the project client was NASA, and the target was Mars 5 million years ago. Mm. And so I'm wondering, like, if it couldn't be something like maybe from some other planet that was becoming uninhabitable. So they're out there looking for alternatives.
But it's interesting. I do talk about some of these things in my new book. I've got some hypotheticals and theories, and there could have been a time where there was a planet or the sun was going nova, or it's exploding, and they were trying to escape. There could have been a war on a planet, and they were trying to escape. That could have been some of it. And cities inside the moon, or a city, or a generational ship, where the length of the trip across the universe was so lengthy that there have been generations that died and were born and live on this ship.
Yeah.
Why would they choose here? Some predict that maybe they saw a planet with a lot of potential that needed to be stabilized, and they could do that. And they planted themselves here to help Earth thrive, or to release some of its inhabitants. Well, you think, okay, well, beings from another place wouldn't look human, would they? Well, who knows? I mean, we don't know, and there are stories that say that we were created because we're from primates that had our DNA tampered with, by extraterrestrial beings. Could those have been the beings, that parked here and, did that tampering with? Maybe they were trying to extend or protect their own species. We don't know. But I feel like something happened. These stories didn't just, the ancient tales just didn't, come out of nowhere. I don't believe that the people in Bolivia, wrote this story on the Sun Gate just for the fun of it. The remote, and there was another remote viewer, by the way, a very famous case with Ingo Swann.
Oh, yeah.
He said that he remote viewed the moon, and he saw humanoids there on the surface doing some sort of work with a laser, and that they somehow sensed him, because I don't know a lot about remote viewing, so excuse me if I don't, get the terms right, but he said that they sensed him, and he fled, and he came back, so to speak, and hid from them because because they had sensed him that he was there, however that works. So, and he said he saw humanoids. Oh, and he has some credibility because, he was the one who had remote viewed Jupiter and found the first ring before we ever saw that Jupiter had a ring. He remote viewed Jupiter and told us that. So the fact that he said he saw some people on the moon moving around up there doing stuff and some buildings too, he has some credibility. So there's something to be said about all of this.
I mean, Ingo Swann was an amazing genius, and he is the one, along with Hal Puthoff and maybe another couple people, that came up with the protocols that the U.S. military used for training their remote viewers. So he was like the godfather of the remote viewers, and amazing, amazing person. Very, very interesting. I wish he was still around because, oh my goodness, he did so much good work on things like remote viewing. He was very much had written a book. I think it was about in 1996 on Marian apparitions around the world, which was kind of a departure from what he had done. And he was also an artist, but yeah. The whole remote viewing thing is very, very interesting, and I would love to know what other work has been done by remote viewers, or even more extensive information on what Ingo Swann did.
Well,
viewing of the moon.
So if you want more of the information, the name of Ingo's book is Penetration, and it's out there, and it's a fascinating read. I think really with that book, he does help us to know that there is something going on with the moon, and that we're definitely not alone if you believe in remote viewing, which I do. I think the man should be given credit where credit is due.
Absolutely. It's been, I believe that the project is still active. It's just gone darker with our military, and that's what the viewers that are retired now, they feel the same, that they're still doing it. They're just, the project has just gone more top secret. So but yeah, very interesting. But I wonder now, in your next book that's coming out, how is it going to differ from, is it going to be another encyclopedia?
No, it's a narrative.
Oh, okay.
And so I wanted to go deeper. I wanted to actually approach this from the point of there being a moon ET connection. It's the moon's galactic history, which it has one. I mean, who's going to tell it? I mean, it's got a whole history behind it. Who's going to tell it in a way that says that it's not just a dead rock in the sky, and that if there are beings on there, who are they? Why are they here? What are they doing? It's got a lot of hypotheticals in there, and takes a look at, some of the ancient text in more depth, and, possibly how we're connected. It talks about the Sumerian scriptures of creation. It talks about the Anunnaki, how they might have a role in all of this. I don't know if you're familiar. I'm sure you're familiar with the Anunnaki.
I am.
Yeah.
I'm actually, like I said, I'm very, very old, so I've met a lot of people. And I got a chance to spend a little time with Zechariah Sitchin.
Oh, lucky you.
Yeah, it was great. I was, work in television, and so I was wanting to do a documentary with him, and I happened to be in New York on business, and so I made an appointment and met him at his favorite little cafe. It's called the Time Cafe, which I don't think is even there anymore, but it was there for many, many years. But I didn't, definitely the Sumerian stuff. I don't remember a connection with the moon, but I guess there would be. I'm wondering if that's the place, the sort of a stepping stone for the Anunnaki, possibly.
Well, I'm trying to connect it to the moon because, there is some idea that the Anunnaki could have this thing over, and that's where the whole Sumerian creation story could have taken place. Adampa, who is Adam, the first created man, is in that story, and it said that he talked a lot about the moon, and there is some thought behind the idea that Adampa may have come from the moon, and the Anunnaki are said to have created a slave race because they were mining for gold on Earth, and the reason they created these species, which would be us, these primates in the DNA, was to have this slave race that could constantly mine for gold that they needed for, I believe it was their dying atmosphere.
Yeah.
And this had to be continuous. And the idea is that the first created man of that was Adampa or Adam, and I think some people it's also called Adapa. Was the first one, and that he talked about the moon, and that maybe the moon was the place where he originated and was brought here. So that's a very interesting and a deep tie-in to it. The fact that it's there and it has been there, all this time, and we have recently learned that we have been visited by extraterrestrials and UFOs for centuries. I mean, if you go back just, to go backwards and go to the medieval art and just keep going all the way back to the writings, you see extraterrestrials, you see what looks like spaceships.
Yep.
That they've always been around. But let's think that if you had a hand in the creation of a new race and you didn't want them to know, you would keep yourselves hidden, at least until they grew to the point where they could be accepting. I mean, we're still living in the mindset that God is sitting in a throne over the earth. And some of us have grown past that idea, but a lot of people, see the world that way. And for them to understand that this may not be correct would maybe be devastating, or would have been a few years ago. I think we've grown. And so, of course, they would have kept themselves hidden to keep the planet going and helping us, to evolve until we get to that point. And I'm almost losing my thought there. But yeah, so we go back to the beginning. They've always been around. But now we're reaching the time where we can understand that we're not alone, that we may have been created by advanced beings, not one, that have been watching us and looking out for us and trying to make sure we don't destroy ourselves. And then finally helping us to come into a universal community. I hear a lot of people talking about, their experiences with seeing UFOs or seeing ships, or having experiences with actual extraterrestrials channeling and trying to talk to them. They're not doing that for no good reason. They're trying to educate us, I think, and to let us know slowly, that they're out there. And could this be helpful information in the end, that maybe it could benefit all of us on this crazy world that we're living in? We could use the idea or the encouragement that there's more to us than just struggling here and just dying. It would be good to know that we're part of a universal community. And who knows what that would mean for space travel, and uplifting the species.
Yeah. Who knows? It's amazing. You were talking earlier about, we should have been told these things. And, I mean, certainly I feel like it would be extremely arrogant of us to think that we're the only ones in the universe. I mean, why would we be? There's millions and billions of other planets. There's, countless other solar systems. Why would this little tiny planet in this relatively small solar system be the only one to develop life, sentient life? To me, it makes more sense the other way, that there definitely would be others out there. And it's like, they say, oh, they don't want to tell us because we couldn't handle it. I don't think that's it. I think they can't handle it. And because it's like they feel like they might lose their standing, whoever these powers that be, in the government, the military, whoever. It's like they want to be large and in charge. They want to be, we can handle whatever it is, when really maybe they don't have a freaking clue about what to do about this extraterrestrial situation, or what it even is, or how to approach it. Maybe, instead of them worrying about our fears, maybe it's their fears, because then if we admit that there are these other beings that are able to traverse, millions and millions of light years, obviously they're going to be more advanced than we are technologically, and maybe in other ways too. Who knows? So then it would seem like, they don't want to admit that there's, like other beings that, might know a little bit more than they do. They don't want to give the impression that they're weak, when really, I think if they have the technology to do what what they appear to be doing, and that's traveling all those years, all those light years, then they also have the technology to do some damage if they want to, but so far they really haven't. So, but I just feel like it's, more about what they don't know in the government and other, world powers than what we don't know. We're that. I'm so sorry. I don't think we're that weak or that fragile. I mean, I wouldn't be upset if, somebody offered me definitive proof that, there was life on other planets. I wouldn't find that upsetting. Maybe some people would, but I think we've evolved more than that by now. What do you think?
Oh, we've absolutely evolved more than that. And I believe that it's out of the powers that be. I believe this whole thing's out of their hands. I think that things can happen. They may be waiting for us to advance a little bit more technologically before they bring us in, and they may be waiting until we're maybe a little more aware spiritually. I don't.
I think we're going backwards in that.
Yeah, we're a little hopeless there. I mean, I'm just guessing. I'm no.
Oh goodness.
So for the most part, I think that people are ready, and they're ready to hear the truth and know the truth. And I just think it's a matter of time. I think once they decide, and once they choose to make themselves known, their presence known, they will. And then there won't be any doubt or questions. Oh, what is that? Why is the picture so blurry? Is that a UFO? Is that a ship? Looks like a ship. Right. I don't think that there's going to be any question. And so I just think it's a matter of time. And I don't think that the powers that be are going to have any say in it, because we don't have enough. We're not as advanced, and we couldn't stop them if we wanted to. So I just think, and maybe it'll happen soon. Maybe it'll happen in our lifetime. I tell you, things really look like they're speeding up. The information that, comes across, my desk, I monitor this stuff all the time. I don't just talk about, the moon. I'm writing a couple of other books too, Cosmic Mysteries. There's a lot of stuff going out there. Have you ever heard this story about there possibly being a Star Wars going on? And I am just beginning to look into this, but apparently there are scientists who can explain some explosions going on out there in the universe. They can't make heads or tails of it, and they're saying, "Oh my God, it doesn't make any sense." I think there might be some warring beings out there. This isn't making any sense. So I'm researching that, and when I find out, I'll come back and tell you, Renee, what's going on. But I'm just saying, there's a lot going on out there that people aren't aware of. I think that we need to get the whole world to kind of take a look at this.
interesting. I'm, after reading your book, I'm, seeing the moon in a lot of different ways now. And like I said, I was really jazzed to read those transcripts of the astronauts all in one place together. It, is kind of mind blowing when you have the information all together.
Yeah.
But I wonder, of course, if you have anything more that you wanted to say, don't let me cut you off again. I'm really bad. But I wanted to also just, mention some of the other areas that you've been into, like the angel material and the near-death experiences. And I was curious, have you had a near-death experience?
I've had out-of-body experiences, not a near-death experience.
Oh, out of body.
Mm-hmm. But the reason I mean, this book, the Encyclopedia of the Unseen World, I wrote for people who are just being introduced to the information of there being something more to us than just the physical. So, one thing that I do like to talk about is that we've heard it. We've heard it in religion. We've heard it for thousands of years. There really is a soul, or you can say astral body, light body, soul, spiritual, whatever you call it. There are two of us. We're one person, but we are a body within a body. We do not die. I've had relatives come back to let me know that, to validate what I know and what I talk about, and that we can come out of this body that we're only in. We can live here on Earth. We need it for this planet. Once this shell is gone, and we've heard it before, we move on. We leave. And honestly, as weird as it sounds, I believe we return. I believe heaven is an ET world. I believe heaven is an ET world. I believe that there is quite a possibility that we are advanced beings who come in here for experiences to live on this planet, and then we return. So you can come out of your body. You can come out and you can move around and you can travel around. You're not stuck in it, but you are tied to it while you're here. And when you sever that, when that's gone, then you leave. But you're still there. You're still alive. You're still thinking. You're in a different form. So the near-death experiences became, I think, popular in the 90s when people were being, when science was able to resuscitate people that had died, and they would pop out of their body and they would see, oh, I'm on the ceiling, I'm looking down at myself. Well, no, you were looking down. They were looking down at their body. Oh, there's my relatives crying. Oh, then you've got someone appearing next to you saying, come on, let's go. And you're like, but I don't want to go. And they're like, okay, well, you want to stay, you want to go. You got the choice. But when that body is so mangled and broken, you don't always get the choice. But anyway, so that was a near-death experience. But some of us, not some of us, all of us can leave during sleep. Most of us can leave, and a lot of us remember. Not most of us. A lot of us remember the experiences. I call these conscious out-of-body experiences. When you wake up out of the body and you find that you are in another place. I have woken up on the ceiling. I've woken up in a mall, someone's house, in a different dimension. And then you can really understand when you're conscious. I'm somewhere else, but I'm wide awake. So a lot of us remember these experiences as dreams, but we're actually moving around. So I talk about that. My first out of body experience that I can recall, I was living single on my own when I was younger, and I woke up and I was in the sky, and I was living in Alexandria, Virginia, For those of you from that area, you'll know the Woodrow Wilson Bridge. There were these apartment buildings, hunting towers there. I came out of the ceiling, through the ceiling, I guess, and I was looking down, and I could see the cars on the Woodrow Wilson Bridge going by. And I had heard of it and out-of-body experiences. I knew what was going on. I wasn't so shocked, but it was amazing. And since that time, I've had them pretty regularly. So I talk about those, and yeah, that's fascinating stuff. You're not born. Um, your life doesn't begin when you're born, and it doesn't end when this body dies. You existed before. You came in here for whatever reason. It could have been a mission. It could have been to experience something. Could have been to help planet Earth. It could have been to learn good and evil, bad, experience the bad, experience pain, and then, head back, for the relatives on the other side, that you've lost here, they're waiting, and they're only waiting a few minutes. So what we experience here, oh my goodness, the years go on forever, it feels like. For them, it's just a few minutes and you're back. And nobody's going to be here forever. So you will, when you're going through your grieving process, try to remember that you're going to be right back there with them in whatever form that was. But I do believe from studying, I've studied a lot of near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, and what was seen on the other side. It really, you're not floating around in the clouds like religion sometimes portray it. You're not. You're living a life there. You're learning. You're socializing. You're seeing cities. It is a place. Now, it has many names. People call it heaven or paradise or whatever their name is for. It's way more than you ever imagined. And not only that, but you can be a being that has actually come in. I'm going to get into some difficult concepts here, but you can be a being on a different planet. There are beings on different worlds that know that they can leave the body and travel. Here, like the extraterrestrials and the UFO acceptance, we're still kind of going, what? No, not really. I don't believe that. We're not there for whatever reason. We are veiled. It is true. We're not supposed to remember everything, but there are worlds where beings know that they can leave their bodies and go elsewhere and visit and then return. So you've got some of those souls here too that are maybe in some kind of stasis somewhere that came in here and then will return home, and then after that return on to that heaven or paradise or whatever. It's very interesting stuff. But yeah, I talk about that.
That is really interesting. And then what about I know you did a book on angels. Have you had angelic experiences, or can you explain a little bit about what you did there? Is it a collection of references again, or is it stories?
Excuse me. So again, when I was very young, it is a collection of mostly references, that book, because I compiled all of these names, hoping it would help people to connect. At that time, this was so long ago, and I have to say I've grown and changed and got even more information on angels. I'd like to do another book on the angels and what I think these days, but I had a very bad negative experience with an unseen entity in my life. And at that time, even though I knew about, religion, I was Christian, I grew up, Baptist, I didn't have that connection with the angels. But in trying to research how to get rid of this haunting, it was a haunting situation, I learned about the angels. And I learned to call on angels, and I learned the archangels, and I learned their names. And when I started that, everything stopped. The haunting stopped, the entity went away when I started learning to call on angels. So I just thought, I'd research them, and I compile a list of, who these beings are and why they're here. And so it does have some stories of some of the most famous angels, in religion. It does have angels across different cultures and civilizations, who and what they represent and what they did. Some people have found it to be very, helpful, but I do wish now that I had been more in depth with it. But it's still a good angel book. But I have some. I need to write another book because I would like to go deeper on who and what they are, where they come from, and why they are. But they definitely exist. Now, angel. The word angel is just one term for these beings. I mean, angel is to me a very Western Christian term, but they come by a lot of different names, and they can be found across the board, everywhere from Wicca to Islam. All right, if you're looking in religion, they are found under different names. These incredible beings that come in and will help you. Now they. They're even known to even yank you out of a situation, if needed. And people do need to be aware that they're not alone in this world. When we come in from wherever that, I call it my ET world, wherever that world is, we are sent with helpers. Now, we don't always know it or believe it, and I think that can hinder you. If you are aware of that you have these incredible beings around you, call on them when you're in trouble. Call on them, because people have done so and they've received help in some very sticky situations, in some very dangerous situations. They've received help in different forms. There was one person where the help came in the form of dogs. All of a sudden, and this person was walking, and they thought they were going to be robbed, and these dogs came and kind of scared the person away. It can happen, but do it you need to be aware that they're there, and yeah, and listen. I guess that's what I was going to say. Listen to to what they're telling you. So a message from these beings can come in the form of a thought. They can come out of a person. You can be talking to someone and swear that for a second you were getting an answer to a question that you've been having, because maybe they spoke through someone just to reach you. But you just never know. They've tried to reach you in many ways because we're really dense and we don't get it. Always.
Funny.
Yeah. So
because I'll talk myself out of it. It's like, I've had some pretty incredible things happen, and at the moment I'm like, oh my gosh, and then later I think, oh, that was probably just this or that or the other, and I'll talk myself out of it. I got to stop doing that and accept things that might be coming my way. But, it's interesting. I've never thought about calling on angels. Lord knows I've, needed assistance many times. And, as we all have had gone through losses and different things. And I haven't thought about calling on angels, but I think I'm going to try that.
I think that's a great idea, but I do have a funny story to tell you. Not a funny story, but it's one of my favorites, and it goes back many years. So I had a little boy who was a toddler at the time. I guess he was 4, maybe, and he was sitting with his little friend, same age, and I was with the mom. We were sitting at a kitchen table. I love to tell this story. We were sitting at the table, and my friend was talking and talking and talking, and the boys were in the family room, and they were talking. We could hear them. I could see my son. I couldn't see her son because he just was around the corner of a little wall there. So my friend was telling the story, and I didn't want to be impolite and cut her off, but I kept hearing, check the door, check the door, check the door. I thought, I better check the door. But I said, Kathy, I hate to stop you. Excuse me, but I think I need to check the door. So I got up and I went to the front door and it was open. And
Wow.
her kid was down the street. So my little boy was sitting there playing with his stuff, and I thought he was talking to her son, and she was talking to me.
Oh my gosh. How scary.
Just learn to listen. You may
Yeah.
even have an image that you can't explain. Why am I thinking of that? Because maybe it's a
Yeah.
warning, or maybe you need to check the door, or, who knows. But anyway, getting back to the Unseen World book, that's what that's about. So for people out there who want to learn, who've never, who don't know the information, they want to learn about life after death. They want to learn about afterlife communication, maybe. How do our loved ones reach us from the other side? Some people know all about it, but a number of people have thought about it, and that's what you can go to these entries in my book and look it up. Afterlife communication is one of my favorite topics. Can reach us from the other side, like the angels. You've got to watch for the signs from them. If your picture sitting on your desk of your grandmother that has passed away falls, maybe it's her trying to get your attention, and
Yeah.
that's really not so scary. That's really not scary stuff. Hollywood has made the other side into this scary world, and it's not. I mean, you can have, yes, I'll admit there are some entities that are not always so pleasant, because they're kind of, don't want to be here, and they don't want to go into the light, and maybe they're just hanging out and they're being annoying. But it's still not, it's not like Hollywood is portraying with those scary movies. What you're getting is people who are trying to reach you and let you know that they love you, and that they're okay. Some of them can manifest right in front of you. I had a friend whose husband came in. I mean, husband, whose deceased father came in and said, Vicki, you need to stop crying, like this. I'm fine. I'm happy. I'm happy where I am. And some of them don't manifest. They may be like my father, who would turn lights on and off, and change the clock at the time, the VCR clock. We don't have VCRs anymore, but do things like that. But sometimes they're just trying to get your attention, and so I have pieces of the book that talk about that for those of you who want to know more about out of body experiences. Go in there. You can look at that, and then take angels, and then take this information and go do your own research, but also take it and incorporate it into your life. Because you just don't know who may be trying to say hello from the other side.
I mentioned one of my best girlfriends suddenly and unexpectedly passed away on Easter this year. And
Sorry.
oh, thank you. Yeah, it's still tough.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to grasp it. But anyway,
Yeah.
that night, of course, I was just sort of beside myself, and I wasn't sleepy at all, and I was still trying to sort of reconcile, how could this have happened? I mean, she's like one of the most vibrant, you know, uh, active people that I know. And, how could it be her? It was just the most shocking thing.
Sorry.
But I was up and it was late and I was, I don't even know what I was doing, probably just thinking. And it was Easter, the night of Easter this year. And I think you live out here in Southern California also, right, Constance?
Yes.
And I don't know if you remember, but in the middle of the night, we had an earthquake. And you might not have even woke up. But I
Yeah,
was,
we have a few of those from time to time.
yeah, I was awake. Anyway, and so as soon as it happened, it immediately stuck in my head, you know, I wonder if that's Gloria, because she knows me. She knows that, I have to be knocked in the head with something. You know what I mean? It's like, you gotta come big if I'm going to really get it, and, and not talk myself out of it, or just explain it away. Anyway, so this was, I was sitting there on the bed and it was shaking, and I went, Gloria. And then I laughed at myself, and went on.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then, a few minutes later, I saw that, one of the, news, local news, I think it was KTLA here, Channel 5, had posted a video on YouTube about, the anchor desk at the moment that the earthquake hit. And so I said, oh, let me see how it looked to them and see how they reacted. It's always fun when they dive under the desk or something. So I clicked on it, and they did it. You could see everything. And then the guy goes, all right, we just had a 5.4 or whatever it was earthquake in Los Angeles at 4:44 a.m.
I remember that one.
444 is the number that, Gloria and I, well, for one thing, we connected with Mary Magdalene, but also anytime, no matter where we are, she lives on the East Coast, or I did rather, and I, of course, live on the West Coast, but anytime, it's like, seems like every time I would look at the clock, it would be 4:44. So I'd always text it to her, 4:44, 4:44. And, I went to get, went to a restaurant, my ticket, I bought coffee. It was 4:44, sent her a picture of it. So 4:44 was a big thing. So I had already talked myself out of the idea that, she was trying to get a message to me through the earthquake.
Oh.
That the whole world, didn't have to experience the message from Gloria. But anyhow, it was just so bizarre. Then, like, just a few minutes later, and the guy said it's 4:44, and I just went, oh my gosh. So I saved that video, and sent it to a few friends the next day, and they said, oh my God.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It was. Those kind of little things happen. And I think that, certainly I don't always pay as much attention to them as I could. And, I think maybe we miss a lot of things that way. And I think, some of the things that you're talking about, your books and your work, sort of helps us focus in on those things a little bit better, and don't just dismiss them out of hand and say, oh, that was just a coincidence, or,
there are no coincidences. They keep saying, we keep hearing there are no coincidences. So we cannot not always explain things, and some things may seem a little, far out there. Why would the universe be trying to give me a message? Who would be trying to talk to me? I'm not so special. What are they trying to tell? You just don't know. There's a plan for us all, as we've all heard. We're here for a purpose. We're here for a reason, and we are not alone. And people are trying to reach us in different ways.
Yeah. I often tell the story, I smiled. I don't know if you noticed earlier when you said you were brought up Baptist, because I was too. And I was saying, I didn't have much angel talk in the Southern Baptist Church,
Right.
Recall. But I do remember, like, people would be, getting full of the Holy Ghost, and, things like that, and going up and testifying that they had a visitation or a vision or whatever. Although the church I went to wasn't really, so much a charismatic church, but, people did, say they felt the Holy Ghost and things like that. And I would always sit there and go, like, I wonder why the Holy Ghost isn't on me. It's like a bad girl, And so I was always thinking, why doesn't anything like that ever happen to me? And honest to God, if it had, I probably wouldn't even have noticed it. I would have explained it away somehow. So I think that's my challenge in this next portion of my life, is to stop explaining everything away and be open to the experiences of other people like yourself, and information that you are sharing. And maybe I'll get a little bit more experiences, or maybe I'll just see them when they do happen.
Well, I just think that it's important for us to be open-minded to the things that are, uh, uh, coming our way, and don't overthink things so much too, because that can backfire. I think just kind of take them as they come, and I think studying, reading, the experiences of other people. While we're reading this information, going over information, we have our angels and we have our guide and we have our helpers that are trying to, help us understand this, because it really does, what we learn here, we take with us when we leave. It's the only thing we can take, is our knowledge and our experiences. And so for me, I'm trying to still, just take in as much information and knowledge about planet Earth and everything I can about being here and the solar, all the knowledge I can, because I want to continue it when I get to where I'm going after I leave here. I want to continue the work. So.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate your good work, and I admire you, and I'm a little bit jealous because I have like a attention deficit disorder or something. I keep saying I'm going to write a book, and I just can't quite get myself down into it. But anyway, I want to remind people again about your latest book, which I have an image of here. The Encyclopedia of Moon Mysteries, and she has several other books as well as some books in the pipeline coming up. So I want to thank you so much for taking the time to visit with us tonight. Apologies again for the technical difficulties. Uh-huh. I'm sure it was my fault, although I am going to try to blame it on Bill if I can.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank me on tonight. It's been a really good conversation. I enjoyed it, and thanks to Bill too. He was so nice, with everything, trying to get us on.
All right, Constance. Thank you so much, Constance Victoria Briggs. Get her book. Look her up. You can actually go to her website, which is ConstanceVictoriaBriggs.com. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good.